Good evening and welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are, I believe, on day 70 of 2025. I wanted to remind anyone who's watching that these stories that I tell you, they're not about watching the video. They're about putting your phone or your computer to the side, closing your eyes, and just listening. So the images that come may come. That's really the whole point, or not the whole point, but it's one of the wonderful benefits of storytelling, is your imagination is activated. Unlike watching a video where you're just kind of watching the video, the images come to you through the video, but with storytelling, they come from what your mind fabricates. So hopefully you'll close your eyes if you're not driving and just listen as I tell you what the last horse's color was to be. Now there's a huge hush that fell over all that were there, the entire audience, and of course Agba was quaking because Sham was none of those colors that had been chosen. The Sultan, after quite some time of sitting silently, finally said, "The last one shall be a bay, but not an ordinary bay, a clear bay with a tint or a hue of gold, that when it runs in the sun, it is as fleet as the wind." Now, when Agba heard this, his heart was, pounding, because he knew that Sham was exactly that, a bay with a touch of gold to its hair, and was the fastest horse of all the Sultan's horses. Now the Sultan went on. He was a horseman, and he knew how to choose the best of horses. Senior Ahmed, before the Sultan could go in, bowed and asked if he could ask a question. The Sultan agreed, and Senior Ahmed asked, "Are these to be stallions or mares?" Now, what do you think the Sultan replied? Because he replied very quickly. "Stallions," he said. "Stallions, that they may sire a whole new race of horses." Senior Ahmed shook his head in agreement. "Now, these stallions," he said, "they must be fleet. And in order, Senior Ahmed, in order to determine this, you must measure each horse from its withers to its tail. See how many hands that horse is. And then from the withers all the way up the neck, across the forehead, and down to the tip of the nose, you must measure again. The distance from the withers to the nose must be longer than from the withers to the tail, for that way the horse shall be fast indeed. This is how you must choose." Senior Ahmed agreed. Now you can imagine that once again Agba is now concerned, for he's wondering if Sham will measure up. Perhaps that is where that phrase came from, measuring up. Perhaps it was from measuring horses. At this point in time, the Sultan Moulay Ismail, felt very, very good about himself. He thought he had come up with the greatest gift anyone could possibly receive: 6 beautiful stallions from his stables. And to celebrate this, he called for tea to be served, especially for himself. Now, immediately, from out of the company that was assembled, 2 men came carrying a table. Another one came with all of the paraphernalia to make and serve the tea. Special spices and herbs were placed into a pot, and then steaming hot water, where it came from I'm not sure, was poured over this brew. After it steeped for some time, steam coming from the pot that it was in, another man came. He had sugar, and taking all the sugar that could, fit into his cupped hand, he put 2 of these handfuls of sugar into the tea. There was a special stirring stick that was used to now allow the sugar to melt into the hot water. And then a cup was poured and given to one of the guards. After he had consumed it, and a few seconds had passed, it was thought that that tea was safe to drink and not poisonous. And so a new cup was poured for the Sultan, who drank it in a draught. 2 more followed before tea was served to the grooms and Senior Achmet. While this was going on, the Sultan looked directly at Akba and asked him to come over to see him. Akba dropped his teacup. It shattered on the stones. He walked forward, standing in front of the Sultan, and we'll leave the story there.